America's job market is collapsing faster than anyone is willing to admit. In just months, U.S. companies have announced over 1.1 million job cuts, the largest wipeout since the Great Recession. Entire departments are being erased. Salaries worth $70,000, $120,000, even $180,000 are vanishing overnight. Workers with decades of experience are receiving cold, automated termination emails. And the damage isn't spread evenly. Some U.S. cities are being hit far harder than others. From tech hubs on the West Coast to corporate centers in the Midwest and finance giants in the Northeast. What you're about to see isn't a slowdown. It's the largest corporate downsizing wave in modern American history. And these are the cities taking the biggest hit. Number 7. Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta has been one of the fastest-growing business hubs in America for more than a decade. But right now, the city is learning what happens when your biggest strength, being home to dozens of corporate headquarters, suddenly becomes a weakness. Because when companies start cutting jobs, they don't start with factories or warehouses. They start with headquarters roles. And Atlanta has a lot of them. Over the past few months, layoffs have hit everything from payment processors to logistics giants, retail corporations, major media groups, and even several Fortune 500 back-office divisions. It's not one industry, it's everyone trimming at the same time. And you can feel it in small ways across the city. Buckhead coffee shops are a little emptier during weekday mornings. Midtown office towers have more lights turned off. And job postings once overflowing have slowed to a crawl. What makes Atlanta vulnerable isn't economic collapse. It's concentration. When so many companies base their finance, HR, marketing, and operations teams in one metro, any national cost-cutting wave hits Atlanta disproportionately hard. Another problem. Many firms expanded rapidly during the pandemic, expecting long-term growth. Now they're quietly reversing course, pulling back staff and freezing hiring. Atlanta isn't in crisis, far from it. But the layoffs are creating a noticeable drag, a kind of tension in the job market that didn't exist just a year ago. In a city known for momentum, the slowdown feels unmistakable. Number 6. Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles is used to volatility. This is a city built on auditions, pitches, and projects that can disappear overnight. But the latest wave of layoffs feels different, because it's hitting every corner of LA's economy at the same time. Hollywood is cutting back. Tech firms in Silicon Beach are downsizing. Streaming platforms are slashing budgets. Advertising agencies, once the engine behind LA's creative workforce, are shrinking teams as brands pull back spending. It's not one storm. It's 3 storms colliding at once. Entertainment layoffs used to be cyclical. Writers strike. Recovery. Production slowdowns. Recovery. But this time, studios and streaming giants are restructuring their entire business models. They're not pausing, they're transforming. And when the entertainment sector transforms, thousands of jobs vanish quietly behind closed doors. Then there's tech. LA spent years building its reputation as a rising tech city. But as Silicon Valley freezes hiring, LA's satellite offices are often the first to feel cuts. Companies trim experimental teams, side projects, and creative labs, many of which were based here. The result is a city where freelancers are struggling to find gigs, full-time workers are competing for fewer positions, and even well-established professionals are feeling uneasy. LA isn't collapsing, but the runway suddenly looks shorter. And in a city where so many careers depend on momentum, a slowdown this broad is enough to make people nervous. Number 5. Chicago, Illinois. Chicago's job market isn't experiencing the sudden, dramatic layoffs you see on the coasts. There's no headline-grabbing collapse, no massive one-day firing events. Instead, Chicago is facing something quieter, and in many ways, more concerning. A slow, steady contraction. It's not one company or one sector. It's a gradual tightening across logistics, retail headquarters, finance, health services, and corporate support roles. A warehouse cuts 40 jobs. A corporate office eliminates a team. A retailer closes a downtown location. None of these stories dominate the news. But together, they create a pattern that's hard to ignore. Chicago's economy has long relied on stability, a wide base of industries that could absorb shocks. But right now, many of those industries are trimming simultaneously, each responding to higher costs, cautious spending, and shifting consumer habits. You can see the effects in small ways. Fewer now hiring signs, longer job searches, and office floors that remain half empty as companies quietly consolidate. Unlike tech hubs, Chicago isn't dealing with volatility. It's dealing with erosion. Jobs aren't disappearing overnight. They're fading. One department this quarter, another one next quarter. It's the kind of trend that doesn't alarm people immediately, but it reshapes a city over time. Chicago isn't in crisis, but it is in a slow slide, a recalibration that could leave the job market weaker than many realize. Number 4. New York City, New York. New York doesn't ease into an economic slowdown. It snaps into one. When companies start cutting costs, the first tremors hit Manhattan almost instantly. And this year, the tremors are getting louder. Wall Street firms have been trimming teams for months. Not because they're failing, but because deal flow is down, trading volumes are unpredictable, and banks simply don't want the overhead. But the layoffs aren't staying inside the financial district. They ripple outward. Media companies are shrinking newsrooms. Advertising agencies are slashing creative teams. Tech offices in the city are reducing headcount after years of overexpansion. Even real estate brokerages normally buzzing with activity are consolidating staff as the housing market softens. What makes New York different is the speed at which sentiment shifts. One week, the city feels unstoppable. The next, everyone knows someone who's suddenly looking for new opportunities. New York's job market thrives on momentum. And right now, that momentum is moving in the wrong direction. You can see it on the subway during weekday mornings. Fewer suits, more empty seats. You can hear it in conversations in midtown coffee shops. They cut my team. We're merging departments. My contract wasn't renewed. New York isn't losing its edge. But the job market that once felt bulletproof now feels exposed. And when the city runs on high-income earners, even a moderate slowdown can leave a noticeable mark. Number 3. Austin, Texas. Austin didn't just grow over the last decade. It exploded. The city went from a regional tech hub to one of the most talked-about boomtowns in America. Startups arrived. Corporate giants built massive new campuses. Thousands of remote workers moved in, convinced Austin was the future. And for a while, it really was. High salaries, endless hiring, and a housing market that moved like a rocket. Austin felt unstoppable. But the thing about boomtowns is that they're built on momentum. And when the momentum breaks, everything slows at once. Over the past year, layoffs from big tech employers have rolled through the city, sometimes quietly, sometimes in large, unexpected waves. Recruiters who once had more job openings than candidates are now sending the same message again and again. We'll keep your resume on file. Startups that expanded aggressively during the pandemic are now backing down, cutting staff, or freezing hiring altogether. Even the city's famous optimism feels a little dimmer. Austin isn't collapsing. Far from it. But it is going through a recalibration, the kind that exposes how dependent the city had become on nonstop hiring and limitless growth. For many people who moved to Austin chasing opportunity, this feels like the first real slowdown they've ever seen here. And in a place that built its identity on acceleration, a pause can feel like a hard stop. Number 2. Seattle, Washington. In Seattle, economic changes rarely arrive with a crash. They drift in slowly, quietly, like the fog rolling across Elliott Bay. And lately, that fog has felt heavier. Seattle's tech sector doesn't just employ people, It defines the entire rhythm of the city. So when hiring freezes turn into layoffs, the impact spreads faster than most realize. Amazon trims a division. Microsoft delays new projects. Startups tighten budgets. No single announcement feels shocking, but together they create a noticeable chill in the air. You can sense it in South Lake Union, where office buildings that once hummed with energy now have entire floors dark in the middle of the day. You can hear it in conversations between engineers at cafes. The team's shrinking. They pause the roadmap again. Recruiting isn't calling back. Seattle's vulnerability isn't drama, it's dependence. When the tech sector exhales, the whole city feels the breath leave the room. And this time, the slowdown doesn't feel temporary. It feels like a reset. There's no panic. Seattle rarely panics. But there is caution, hesitation, and a collective awareness that the easy growth of the last decade may not return anytime soon. The jobs aren't disappearing overnight, but the confidence is. And in Seattle, that shift alone is enough to reshape the entire mood of the city. Number 1. San Francisco Bay Area. The Bay Area has lived through booms and busts before, but this one feels different. Because it isn't just about jobs. It's about identity. For decades, Silicon Valley was the place where anything could happen. A single idea scribbled in a coffee shop could turn into a billion-dollar company. Talent poured in from every corner of the world. Money followed. And the region grew confident, maybe too confident, that the growth would never end. Then the layoffs started. Not the usual post-holiday cuts, but deep, structural reductions. Entire teams dissolved. Innovation labs shuttered. Side projects canceled. Whole buildings emptied with a single memo. The shock wasn't in the numbers. It was in the symbolism. When companies built on hyper-growth begin shrinking, the Bay Area feels it immediately. Restaurants in Soma see fewer lunch crowds. Caltrain cars are quieter. Neighborhoods once filled with young engineers now have "for rent" signs sitting longer than anyone expected, and the psychological shift is unmistakable. For the first time in a long time, people aren't coming to the Bay Area for opportunity. They're leaving in search of it. The layoffs are real, but the deeper story is sharper. The region that built the modern tech economy is confronting a future where growth is no longer guaranteed. The Bay Area isn't collapsing, but the era that defined it, that era is ending. So, that's the picture. Across the country, layoffs aren't just hitting companies. They're reshaping entire cities. Some are slowing, some are cracking, and a few are already feeling the weight of a very different economy. We'll be watching how this unfolds, because the next wave may be closer than anyone expects.